As you may already know, I hate being in crawl spaces and I hate being in dark crawl spaces. That's why we put an LED light back over in that corner. At the moment I have a work light down here. I have a flashlight next to the dehumidifier. And why we're looking at this product, thanks to the Home Depot Seeds program, the commercial electric LED tape light. 16 feet of tape light. It's wall dimmable. You can either plug in or direct wire. It's a fairly small box. And I'll show you a couple things I really like about this product. But first off, we're going to try something unconventional. And that is, we're going to try to light this area here with LED tape light. Why that versus, you know, throwing another LED light fixture down there? Well, because this is 16 feet of light, and while probably not super bright, in a dark crawl space, it should be enough to probably light this area. And I need to be able to see this area, work in this area, whenever I have to come down to do regular maintenance on this unit, and just whenever I have to come down here and deal with any of the other things that homeowners might have to deal with in their crawl spaces that they don't like going into. Unboxing the unit, what do we get? We get a care guide and manual. We get a plug-in polarized plug. We get the actual power supply. Now, the really cool thing about this is that you can dim with it. Plus, you see how it already comes pre-wired with the plug, right? But let's say, you know, you need it to go through a cabinet. Let's say if you're doing it in the kitchen. Well, you know, you don't have many choices. You could clip the head off of this and then run that through the cabinet. But with this unit, you pop these two screws and you can undo this wiring. Also, if you want to do a direct wire, you can just skip this, remove this entire wire, and then just direct wire to the inside leads. And the beauty is that they do the same thing on the other side. So again, if you're trying to fish, you know, 16 feet of this stuff, it can get rather difficult, especially if this is in the way. So you pop this cover off. There are only two screws. Very important you follow the polarity, because if you screw this up, you'll burn out the LED lights. Anyway, pop these two screws, get this cover off. You can remove this wire, run it any way you want to, or even shorten the wire, and then come back to this. That allows you to place this box almost anywhere you want, as long as you can feed a wire to this side and to this side of it, you're set to go. So I love this. Other products have this already hardwired into it where you can't access it and remove it on both ends or on one of the two ends. These folks just make it a lot easier. 30-watt unit should give you plenty of power. And we're probably going to take advantage of the fact that it does have a plug, although we may shorten the plug depending on where we connect this. And you're looking at it and you're going, well, gee, how do you hang this? There aren't any mounting holes in the back. No, they're actually on the side. There's one there, and then there's one at the other end. Since it's not a heavy thing, you don't need four. Two should be plenty for mounting. And you know, if you also had double-sided tape or a Velcro type product, you could also use that for mounting. I'm probably gonna go off one of the beams down here, or joists. I don't think it's gonna work on the cinder block, and could maybe come off of that. That's going to be my power source over there. That's actually a GFCI outlet. So we're protected in that way. And so now I see they're still using the old, what looks like 8mm film reels. So one of the first things I'm going to do is just plug this in to see how bright, because I have run into some brands that are really dim, especially the ones that you can order on some online services. I don't expect that from this brand because I've used some of their products and they've always been of very good quality, but I just want to get an idea, especially since I have 16 feet of this stuff to play with. Oh, I forgot to mention, they give you 2 sets of clips for making turns, or if you have to, if you have to cut the tape because you want to go from one object to another and then you don't want any tape in between, this can bridge that across. Or if you have to make really tight turns where you can't do a 90 with this, so this will help you do that. There are also some cable clips, I think only 2, which should be enough. Anyway, one important thing you should know about this type of tape, if you've never dealt with it before, is, well, first off, this one's wired already for you, so we don't have to make the connection to the power supply. Usually what happens is when you get these kits, the LED tape is just on a reel all by itself, and you have to make that initial connection. They do that for you. Backside is 3M adhesive tape, so that should stick. Now, any place where you see 2 little copper strips, that's a place where you can cut with a pair of scissors, and everything prior to that to the power cable will work. And then you can also cut, where is it? Let's see. Nope. You can cut on every copper strip, but I thought, there it is. There's also solder. You can also cut on that. The problem with cutting on the solder is that you'd have to solder a connection. So if you're going to put one of these connectors, you're going to have to solder that in place. So with the exception of the solder joints that have to be soldered, the other ones, either you do a clean break there and that's the end of your run, or if you want to place a connector, the connectors just clip on. And the important thing to know with this is the polarity. Make sure that positive is going to positive and negative to negative, and you should be fine. And that's automatic. Well, it's not automatic. You still have to pay attention to it if you do the solder. But those are the 2 places. You can't cut anywhere else in between, because then you just have something that doesn't work. But the gap is fairly small. It's probably 4 inches between places that you can splice. So that's pretty cool. So let me unroll this and we'll plug it in and see what it looks like. We've plugged in, killed the work light and the flashlight. So this is the lighting coming off the LEDs. It is a soft white, so not the bright white that you might get with what some would consider industrial lighting, natural sunlight. It's a warmer light, which actually would be appropriate for indoor use. This seems plenty bright for me. Lights up the area, so I'm sure, being that this is also reflective white, and it's not that far from the entrance, this will actually work pretty well. My wife asked me originally, are you going to wrap it around the machine? And I thought, well, yeah, kind of cute, but not very practical. You see there's some equipment back there that also needs to be kept track of. So you need to see it, and flashlights get really kind of annoying down here. So just to have a work area that is lit would make it just a much better environment to be in when you don't want to be here. I was going to tell you that the light output from this is 2685 lumens, which is pretty bright, and they'll get warm to the touch, which is why they don't want you keeping it on the reel when you light it up, because you'll damage the bulbs. The next thing we have to do is just figure out how we want to lay this out, because obviously, you know, running across these is easy, but if I want it coming across, then am I hanging looking straight down? Am I shooting the light this way? You know, things that if you were putting it in the kitchen or a living room wouldn't be much of an issue are a concern. So I have to do a little thinking on this before I stick everything in place. Well, scrounging through the garage for some screws so that I could mount a power supply to one of the joists, I came up with an idea for using this molding. I think it's called quarter round, flat on two sides, round on the other. I have a bunch of it just laying around that I've been wanting to get rid of. And I think I found a use for it, because if I can use a brad gun and an air compressor, I can mount this across the joist, right? And then I can attach the tape light to the flat side of this. And thus, I could either project the light down or across. Probably going to project it down, but we'll see. Anyway, so that would give the LED tape something to attach to as we ran across the beams, because really what I want to do is light this area in here. And since I have, what, 16 feet of this stuff, I could probably do 8 feet, then come across and use the remainder coming back this way. Hopefully I won't have to cut it. These are rather long, but I may just nail them up all the way across and not have to deal with any sewing. So that's the plan. Let's see if it executes. After running several brads, this is the solution I came up with. Much like I had thought, I'm running it from joist to joist. The round side, it's going to be the outside. And you see there's a flat side here. And of course there's a flat side up on top, which is where the brads went to. So that makes it even. This side is where the tape's going to go. So the light's going to shine out and down. Ran into a little issue down there where I didn't fully check the length of this. And there's that black pipe going left to right, right to left. That's a gas line. So I just sort of tucked the molding up against a joist and triple nailed it there and over here. Now all I have to do is just run a matching piece down that side, avoiding power lines, power cords. You get the idea. We've run our second line all the way to there. And again, it's flat on the side facing where I want to light, and quarter round on the back side, and of course flat on top so that it easily mates there. Most brads were one to each position, occasionally twice. I had one where I kind of did a miss there, and that took 3. You don't want to put too many in because you don't want to end up splitting the wood, so got to be careful with that. So at this point, I'm ready to mount the power supply over here somewhere. I'm going to cut the lead, make it short, so it just loops down once, plugs in case there's some moisture that drips through. It doesn't lead to the power supply. Then we'll plug in here, and then we'll run our LEDs along that wood, cut across on the back side, and come back up. So wish me luck. Recall that I said once you take these screws out, you can lift this cover, and you see there are two little screws on either end. You loosen those, and this wire comes out, thus allowing you to take the plug cord and shorten it to any length you want, or to direct wire into this unit. All you do is put in the leads and tighten down. Make sure that you follow the wiring. So you want your line, your black wire, or in this case, it's the smooth side, because this side has a little rib on it. That's the neutral. So the load side is always going to have to go on the L for load, or if you're direct wiring, it'll be your black wire. And then white will be your neutral. So make sure you get that wiring correct, otherwise you could fry everything out. You may notice that they made their connection by crimping the wire strands before inserting it in here. So if you have the time, you could solder your ends so you kind of achieve the same thing. Otherwise you have to look for that size of crimper and of course a crimping tool. I don't have that. And I don't want to go upstairs to do soldering. So I just put it in there, drove in the two screws. It's in there tight. When you put the cover on it, that crimps this lead in place. And since there is no stress on this wire is just hanging, it's not going to get pulled out. If it were in an area that was subject to a lot of vibration or where it could be pulled, then I'd be a bit more cautious and go through the extra effort of either crimping it or soldering those ends. Now, because the lead feeding the tape light is also too long, we unscrew the cover. And in this case, there's no rib side and smooth side, but there is a coloration. One side is white, which is positive, and then there's the gray, which is negative. If you should forget that, it's printed right on the box. Really nice of them. So again, you unscrew this, take this out, cut it to length, split the wiring, and put the white side on the positive side, gray on the negative side, tighten that down, put your cover back on, put the screws in it, and we're ready to mount this. Here's the power supply installed. Unfortunately, it wants to go the other way. That's the way the two mounting holes are configured. I still needed it to come this way because this is where my outlet is. So what I did was I used this mounting hole, then I put a screw here to hold it in place while I attached it up there, because that's actually it's a hook. It looks like this, and the screw goes inside, so it's supposed to go like this. So if it was turned around, gravity would drop it right into place, and then you'd screw it in. But being that I put it in reverse, this just helped out a little bit. But it's tight to the wall. It's not going anywhere. So now all we have to do is pull back. Oh, by the way, I did clean this, because if there's dirt and stuff on there, then this is probably not going to adhere to it very well, even though it's 3M. So peel back the tape and just start running it down the line until we run out of tape. Or in your case, run it until you have enough and then cut it at one of the splice points. Sorry for the pulsing light. That's just the camera reacting to the work lamp. So we see our LED tape. I didn't want to go all the way to the end of the molding, so I took one of the joists, just made a soft L turn. You can't make a really hard L turn, especially over one of the LEDs, because you could damage it. But a soft turn that doesn't do a major bend outward on an LED, you should be fine on. And then I took this all the way until I ran out of tape. And now it's time to turn off all the work lights and see if this is a success. Except for the back corner of the crawl space, there are no other lights on. Go to plug the unit in. And we get a nice soft white. And most important, it actually lights up the area that I have to work in. So look at that. You know, and you don't get strong shadows, so that if you're working on something, you can still see it. I am so pleased that I figured out a solution for this, because for the longest time I thought, you know, well, you just put in another LED light fixture somewhere and it'll shine. But this gives me 360 light around this unit, which is the thing that probably needs the most regular maintenance down in the crawl space, and still casts enough ambient light that it makes coming down here less scary. And plus I have that one way at the other end. And all this is controlled from a switch up in the house. So I flip that switch and everything douses, except for this unit, of course, which is on its own separate circuit. So I am really pleased with this product. My hat's off to them. I think they did a superb job. They do make these in RGB, so if you want colors, there's probably a higher color temperature if you want the bright white. But, you know, this looks really nice. It actually feels nice to work in. It has, because it's a warmer white and it's not the harsh white, it just feels comfortable. And I like that. Installation of the box is easy. It's very flexible with the lead coming into it as well as with the lead coming out of it. You can just totally mount that box anywhere you want and then just custom feed leads to and from it. So I think that is great on their part. I wish you could mount it either way easily. But as you saw, I did a work around it and that's totally fine. So I'm not going to ding them for that. I could also use double-sided tape or a Velcro product to take care of that. Anyway, I give it a thumbs up. So I hope you found this video interesting and useful, and you give it a thumbs up, leave us a comment, join the subscription team, and as always, thank you ever so much for watching.